Ramblin' Gamer coming at you guys today with my top 10 Pokemon that I think would make great kaiju. So, as many of you are probably well aware by now, I'm a pretty big damn fan of Pokemon. But I obviously love other fandoms as well. I associate as a brony and an otaku, and I would punch a baby to pilot a giant robot. But perhaps no other fandom comes quite as close to my love of Pokemon as the Kaiju fandom does. I've been watching giant monsters destroy cities and cause all sorts of chaos since I was a wee lad. Where most people had superheroes to idolize, I idolized a giant nuclear dinosaur that shot atomic rays from its mouth. While playing Pokemon, it's easy to notice that there are several Pokemon that are fairly kaiju-like. So here's my top 10 list. Please do remember, these are my opinion, and as such, Aggron, Nidoking, Rhydon, and Tyranitar will not be on this list. Although, a kaiju that whips up a sandstorm before destroying a city sounds like a pretty awesome idea. Number 10. Gigalith. Originally, Gigalith didn't make this list. That was until I looked and saw what it looked like in 3D, and holy hell, it does not disappoint. One of the things I looked for while making this list was what said Pokemon would look like as a suit, and how a man would fit into it. Gigalith is one of the few monsters on this list that doesn't meet that requirement. It would have likely have been a marionette for most of its scenes, but oh my god, after seeing this thing light up in X and Y, I had so many ideas. Gigalith started reminding me of a monster that would have appeared in the 80s and 90s monster movies. Ironically, he wouldn't have been a physical brawler, but instead would have been using energy attacks, likely lasers shot from the crystal-like protrusions all over his body. Number 9. Exploud. There's just something awesome about sound, and it makes for such an interesting weapon. While sonic waves seem to be at home for a bat, I find that in the hands of a kaiju-sized Exploud, they'd be a truly awesome force. I think that most people are very well aware that sound has the power to kill, and I'd like to think a kaiju-sized Exploud using Boom Burst in the middle of a city would probably not only level most of the city, but would probably kill a lot of people that weren't caught up in the blast just from the noise alone. As well, Exploud can learn the elemental fangs and punches, as well as use flamethrower and ice beam. There's just something awesome about a monster that can roar and knock down a building, but can still breathe fire when the time comes. Number 8. Thanks a lot, Obama Snow. But seriously, Obama Snow. He's already an amazing idea for a Pokemon. I mean, essentially combining an evergreen tree with a Yeti is a pretty awesome idea. This would make a very interesting idea for a kaiju. There's already a lot of plant-based kaiju out there. Most of them use acid and tentacles though, pretty standard for a plant. But there's just something that sounds terrifying about seeing a big frost-covered tree running towards a city, combined with the fact that it can whoop up snowstorms and has a great-looking mega. Yeah, Obama Snow is a grade A epic kaiju fun monster. Number 7. Electivire. A big fuzzy ape-like electrical kaiju. Hell yes, sign me up, I want to see that movie. Electivire has a great design, and it's one Pokemon that fans will agree looks far better than its predecessor does. It'd be fun enough to see a big static furry thing running around punching buildings and other kaiju, but also adding in the fact that its tails generate electricity, it'd be fun to just watch them touching tanks and aircraft, blowing them up. Number 6. Golurk. Golurk is a rather interesting choice for this list, but I can't help but put it on here. A giant clay golem infused with mystical energy and brought to life by an ancient civilization to defend them. Yeah, this has cheesy kaiju plotline written all over it, and I love it. Given that it can also fly, I'm seriously wondering if Nintendo stole the plot from the 90s Gamera movies. In a world where Noivern have come to wreak havoc, the only thing that can stop them this summer, it's Golurk, guardian of the universe. Plus, you know, it's a ghost and all. And hey, speaking of ghost, number 5. Dusclops. Dusclops is another one I cannot help but put on this list. It looks like something straight out of the Ultraman series. I mean, Dusclops is pretty cool and all, but it's kind of a goofy looking thing. But a Cyclopean mummy kaiju does sound pretty kick-ass, especially if you think about all it might do. I'm a big fan of the idea of a kaiju just being able to phase wherever the hell it wants to. It's one thing when a kaiju's marching towards a city, but how do you defend yourself when it all of a sudden randomly poofs into the middle of a city and goes on a reign of destruction? Also, it can learn a lot of punching attacks. So, you have a giant cyclopean boxing mummy kaiju. Those are all words, and when they're put together in that order, they just sound like something that's freaking fantastic. Number 4, Caesar. Bug kaiju have a long history of not doing very well with fire. Ironically that I would choose a Pokemon with a 4 times weakness to fire then for this spot, but I just don't see fire hurting Caesar very much. In fact, I don't see a lot hurting Caesar very much. I'm a big fan of anything with an exoskeleton, and the idea of having one that's made out of metal just seems so awesome. Caesar would potentially be very fast, armored, and it could hit hard, and that's a trifecta for a kaiju. Not to mention, it can Mega Evolve, so GG. Number 3, Mewtwo. This is the one. I've loved the idea of telekinetic kaiju ever since Space Godzilla. Mewtwo's a little bit oddly shapen for a kaiju. It doesn't look like something that'd be able to stand too many hits, which is something it would probably never have to do. It's one thing when a kaiju destroys a city by breathing fire or punching buildings, but all of a sudden when a kaiju can get a headache and flatten a city block with its mind alone, I mean, seriously. If you were a giant Mewtwo, wouldn't you just have fun knocking down buildings with your mind? I mean, just imagine it. Tanks, jets, unloading their payloads into you, and all of a sudden you just stop all those shells and missiles in midair and fire them directly back at them. Tough shit kaiju comes walking into town thinking he's just gonna kick your ass. All of a sudden you start picking up buildings and chucking them at him, and that's not getting into the ability to raise barriers or use things like flamethrower and a billion other attacks. Oh wait, it can Mega Evolve? Well, there goes the planet. Number 2, Blastoise. The big blue turtle is an interesting choice for my number 2 spot. I have to wonder what's more ridiculous, a giant fire-breathing turtle that flies, or one that shoots water out of cannons on its back. Blastoise is said to be able to shoot water with enough power to punch through steel. Needless to say, if a human got hit with this, it would pretty much vaporize you into frothy red mush. But what happens when you blow Blastoise up to the size of a skyscraper? Its cannons would be more than enough to topple buildings. It has a thick shell giving it some good protection, and it can learn a wide variety of attacks that could easily be translated into lasers. Though, for me, the most interesting thing about Blastoise is what it could do with an ice beam attack after unloading water into buildings. I mean, it's one thing to be drowning, but the next thing you know, you're frozen and dead. Yeah, cool. Number 1, Vespiquen. Yes. I can't even begin to fathom how much I want to go back to the 1960s and make a movie about a giant flying radioactive bee that has a big red gem on its head that shoots lasers and can command a swarm of giant bees that live inside of its body to do its bidding. Are you freaking kidding me? That is kaiju gold right there. I can already see this movie in my head. It starts out with some country house, family sitting down for dinner when all of a sudden they hear buzzing outside. The dad goes to investigate and all of a sudden, bam, swarm of bees. The same thing keeps happening over and over again until eventually swarm of bees attacking a city. In the aftermath, scientists and some other random people that are going with him for some reason go out and discover where the bees have been coming from, and bam, they discover a giant queen kaiju. They plan some big military attack against it, and it of course fails, prompting the kaiju to go on a rampage and destroy another city, where the scientists manage to do some magical BS that somehow takes the creature down. I'm not sure if I have too much free time on my hands, or if I've just watched too many giant monster films for my own good. Why not both? Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this list. I know I've had a ton of fun putting it together and thinking about how each of these monsters would be a kaiju. This has been Ramblin' Gamer. Watch out for bears.